HIDIVE! Enough said. So, I've been gone for,
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass.
Jesus. Okay. I'm still around. I just don't post videos. I'm mostly busy doing adult things in the adult world. That's why this video took like, I don't know, 2 to 3 years to make. I do have a Blue Sky account if you're interested in seeing any more of me. That's mostly where I'm active. I'm also using new editing software, DaVinci Resolve, to make this video. I've heard some good things about it, and hey, Disney uses it, and I don't seem to have any problems with Disney. But enough talk about me. I want to talk about HIDIVE, because HIDIVE is genuinely a really fun service to talk about. Doesn't mean that it's good, I just like talking about it. In fact, I like talking about HIDIVE so much that I've been paying for the service myself. Ever since I got a job in Adultsville, I've been paying $6 a month, that actually really hurts to say out loud, on an anime streaming service run by the same people who run the Walking Dead streaming service. I forgot its name. And since my previous video on a teardown on HIDIVE, there have been some developments, if you will, with the biggest one being HIDIVE having a new UI. Yeah, look, I know, I'm like, no, like a year behind, okay? I even gave a little review of it myself. Just hear me out for a minute. HIDIVE's new UI, at least to me, looks pretty decent, if you're looking at it at a first glance. There are a few plot holes, like the profiles being boring, and the weird decision for someone on the smart TV version of the application to make it so you have to go under the settings just to access the watch list. Whose idea was that, and where can I meet him? But I'm not gonna bash on them like I did with the original, mostly because I actually want to give a review of this application, and give my thoughts and feelings. And since I like adding my own twist to things, I looked into all of the Android versions of HIDIVE, and I'm gonna be giving my thoughts and feelings on them, and yeah, may God have mercy on my soul. Now, I know what you're wondering. Why would I review every single HIDIVE application with the UI? Well, a few reasons, but mostly 3. 1, I wanted to show how HIDIVE's app works from all angles. 2, there are some features that are different with some apps compared to others. Oh, and it gives me a reason to use my HIDIVE subscription, because you know damn well I'm not going to be using it. Would you believe me if I told you that I've only been using it up until this point to watch Niku no Ichi? You probably would, because I can prove it. But anyway, let's move on to the best version of the application, which is... Yeah, I know, I'm starting off strong today. The mobile version of HIDIVE, arguably the most downloaded version of HIDIVE on Android, and arguably the one that I sometimes use when I'm too lazy to use my Google TV. The UI on mobile isn't bad. Pretty much all 3 versions of HIDIVE operate relatively the same way. They usually have big banners with logos and graphics for the select home screen shows. They have a home screen layout that relatively looks the same across all 3 places. Oh, and they're pretty disappointing when it comes to recommendations, as despite, in my opinion, recommendations being the most important part of the service, I don't have to really talk about much because there's basically nothing. But the other parts of the UI are pretty different between all 3 versions. Let's start off with the bottom bar, which offers browse, watch list, search, and a schedule feature. Now, while a few of those are just standard streaming things, I will admit I like the inclusion of a schedule button, something Crunchyroll doesn't have. And no, the new episodes button that only updates when something is added to the service doesn't count because it doesn't tell you what's upcoming, which is the point of a schedule. Oh, and Sony, are you listening? Can we please get rid of the store tab? I never go under it. Or at least let me swap it out with an actual schedule, because I'd probably do more with that. Another thing I like about this UI are the graphics, which is something that's kind of been popularized by services. Almost every major service I know of has these things. Just recently, Crunchyroll updated their show pages to show logos and graphics on mobile, which is nice, and they look really good, something I wish HIDIVE adopted, because on mobile we only get these boxes that have the cover of the show, episode listings, which I find disappointing. Even more disappointingly, and something that used to be on HIDIVE, I also found that they got rid of the recommendations based off of shows. Pretty much any other streaming service offered more shows that were similar to the shows that you watched, but HIDIVE doesn't do that anymore. In fact, I'm guessing they know this because on the homepage you have things like, if you liked blank show. For example, when Oshinoko was on the air, they offer recommendations similar to it on HIDIVE. But it wasn't on the show page, it was listed on the home screen, which I feel like is a very I don't know, odd way of trying to fix a situation that wasn't even a situation until they made it a situation. But hey, one thing that I did mention in my Teardown to HIDIVE video that they did take into account was the introduction of downloads. Yes, HIDIVE of all services now allows you to download movies and TV shows and you can watch them offline, something that most of us had around this time. I will admit though, I was actually starting to like the HIDIVE app around this time. Mobile app fixed a lot of the issues I mentioned. The original UI felt outdated, lackluster, and prone to sluggishness, and this fixed issues and also added some more stuff. And honestly, I could forgive a few of the issues I mentioned prior in my video since this was HIDIVE after all. There was even an option to allow you to type in a code in-app, and it would easily allow you to sign into TV apps like the Google TV and Apple TV versions of HIDIVE, which is super cool and something that not even Crunchyroll has. So my perspective of their mobile app was turning around, until I actually started to watch content through it. Now, I can't show you anything because DRM is a pseudo-reviewer's worst nightmare, so I'm just gonna replace it with whatever I can find online. I feel like the player on HIDIVE isn't bad, but it's not good either. There's just something really wrong with it. For example, the fact that you can jump 30 seconds back and 30 seconds forward. I feel like that is way too long compared to most streaming services. It's 10 seconds. And to make matters worse, if you watch the dub version of some shows, the dub audio will sound different than the subtitles that are on screen. Now, I will admit, it's nowhere near as bad as Crunchyroll's with their auto-generated, there's a fucking cat photobombing you, but it's still not great. I assume the reason why the subs are like this are because the original subtitles for the subbed version of the show, and of course, when the dubbed version comes in, the dialogue's gonna sound a little different, which makes sense, but I feel like it just doesn't feel good this way.
Okay, that doesn't feel good.
Just to be clear, it's not too different. There are a few changed lines, but it's not like you won't understand what's being said because they changed it too much. But hey, in comparison with Crunchyroll, it's either this or Okami-san, I love you.
Commie bastard.
Not to mention, it doesn't support picture-in-picture, which is something I really dislike. As of late, I've been using YouTube and watching stuff in picture-in-picture, largely because I like doing something while doing something on my phone. Most services offer it in some sort of way, like Netflix or even the Japan streaming service Unext. Crunchyroll only offers it on Apple products, but I was able to get it to work on Android using split screen, splitting my screen up in two like this, which for some reason causes HIDIVE to have this weird stroke flickering between full screen and not that. Also, the player does not offer skipping intros or outros, which is something that Crunchyroll's had for years up until this point, and most shows have skip intro outro functionality within a few hours, albeit there are a few stragglers. The HIDIVE player just isn't great in its current state, but I guess it's better than the generic player that Android had for the original UI. I'd forgive them if this was their first attempt, or if they were just shaking things up with the generic Android player, but this was a player created specifically for HIDIVE, and I think it was kind of a shame they couldn't get it right, even after they were given a second chance. Also, what's the point of this part under the player's UI? Is it trying to parody Crunchyroll show's menu? I don't like theirs either! Honestly, that's my current problem with HIDIVE's UI to me. The UI looks good presentation-wise, but they're still not there yet. It's arguably better than HIDIVE's previous UI to me, but that's not saying much when there's literally nowhere to go but up when you make one of my least favorite UIs of all time. So for now, the mobile version sits up there as the best version. That's not saying much. Maybe the reason why I don't enjoy HIDIVE's app is largely because I need a bigger screen. So let's move over to the tablet version of HIDIVE. So I bought this Pixel tablet a while ago because I thought it'd be a cool tech item, but I haven't really had a good use for it. So let's all find a good use for it by using this bigger screen to watch oh, son of a bitch. Prepare your shocked faces, but I guess the mobile version of HIDIVE and the tablet version of HIDIVE share some similar DNA, because there are many key elements that are the same between it and its much smaller cousin, so I don't think I'll be spending too much time on this one. You see, I knew there'll be some sacrifices because of the bigger screen, but I didn't expect this girl's face to get cut off. Speaking of getting cut off, you have show pages, which I think look fine. They look fine, I guess. It's still based on the mobile version, but I don't think it's bad because of that. I just wish they did a little bit more to make a more tablet-centric experience. I know I sound like a broken record, and I don't think it's best to say, just do what they're doing. But if you look at a service like Disney Plus, they take advantage of all that real estate a tablet offers while simultaneously offering an experience that looks pretty good across both a smartphone and a tablet. Despite this little hiccup, HIDIVE's tablet app isn't actually too bad, and I don't really have a particular problem with it. And like I said, it's pretty much on par with the mobile app, meaning it shares some of the same qualities and negatives. Like the show pages, the schedule, the watch list, the casting, the downloads, and of course, the god-awful player, which hasn't been improved not much at all since me switching from my mobile version to the tablet version, having the same issues of its own, such as jumping back 30 seconds and pointless info sections. In fact, on my Pixel tablet, unless you full screen the video, because of that info tab, the screen looks like the size of, ironically enough, a smartphone. Of course, I could change the aspect ratio to fix that, but still, that's kind of annoying. Again, not much to say about this version that I haven't already said. I feel like it'd be better so long as they buckle down on what they already have and maybe make a few smaller changes rather than overhauling the entire thing, at least to me. Just to make it feel more like a home on a tablet. But screw it. I'm gonna throw everything away. What if we went bigger? Watching stuff on a TV like I do. Sometimes. Well, that's where my Google TV streamer comes into play. One of my current Google products that I bought that includes a modern recyclable paper packaging. Ooh-wee, I guess this is new hot shit or something. Might as well just get rid of every other streaming box I have. Like my Apple TV 4K, I mean it's Apple, so fuck them. Joking aside, the Google TV streamer is my daily driver, so of course I'm gonna use it. As for the UI itself, well, the first sentence of my review around the same time of its release kinda sums it up the best. With the release of the new UI, I have to say, first impressions when opening up the app were pretty good, as the big show graphics looked nice. But as I started to look throughout the app, there were a few imperfections that kinda made the experience weird. End quote. That part was from my actual review on the Android/Google TV version of HIDIVE, once I got my hands on it. When you first open up the application, the graphics that we had seen in the mobile applications got an upgrade. Now, time for a little bit of a tangent. I know I've never really talked about this before, largely because I've never really had the time to, but I love seeing big graphics and logos on places like show pages and home screens of titles. It's probably one of the only good things about Macs, as almost every Mac show has a big graphic and logo to go along with it. And I'm glad other companies like Crunchyroll are taking advantage of it. Like I previously stated, Crunchyroll's mobile app recently upgraded to offer big graphics and logos, and I think they look phenomenal. Disney Plus and Hulu are pretty decent, but I don't think they could ever stack up to Macs in terms of how show pages look on their service. I wish HIDIVE would offer something similar to what Crunchyroll does, where you get these big graphics and show pages, but I guess I can settle for homepage treatment. In fact, HIDIVE has been doing this for a while. Shows like Chain Soldier, Oshinoko Season 2, I Parry Everything, and Is It Wrong to Pick Up the Girls in the Dungeon listed these big show graphics, but then you go to the actual show pages themselves, and you're asking the question of why they look so claustrophobic. This isn't even a HIDIVE issue on its own. I know we'll eventually get them, but Crunchyroll on Android TV/Google TV, okay, I'm gonna be calling it from Google TV here on out, sorry, had this issue as well, where the show pages don't really feel roomy. That's the thing with show pages in my opinion. They're more than like just a look into the show. I'd say they're the home of the work in question, even if it's almost a temporary lease. So why not spruce it up? Give it some big backgrounds, give it logos, give it details, but don't overload us with too much information. That's how I see things, at least. Like, compare the show pages of Welcome to Japan myself on Crunchyroll's mobile application and compare it to their Google TV app. I don't know about you, but I honestly love it when streaming services have given shows space to breathe and let the artwork and logo flourish. Make them feel alive, you know? In fact, when I was creating my HIDIVE mockup UI, that was actually something I heavily pushed. Now, compare the show pages from Niku no Ichi versus the homepage showcasing Niku no Ichi. They didn't even bother putting the English localized name on the box! Also, I mentioned this beforehand, but I feel like they're trying to put everything in one space, and that leaves everything feeling a bit claustrophobic or overwhelming. Kind of like you're being hit with too much information. In addition to having the cover on the front and back, most likely because they duplicated it, you also have the episode lineup, a bunch of information detailing whether or not the show will be dubbed, subbed, both, the genres it fits in, the name of the show being given off 3 times. I feel like it's a lot to be taking in. I genuinely feel like all you needed was just a drop-down menu. A drop-down menu, which would have filled in the gaps. Also, something to throw in on mildly infuriating, I feel like if you use some guidelines, the cover would actually be really off-center. And now you can't unsee it. Just to be clear, I don't hate how these show pages look, but to me, they feel like show pages that just get the job done and not much else. And that's not something most streaming services should do. I get it, you're the ones hosting the content, therefore you're the boss, but I feel like it wouldn't be bad if we got, I don't know, maybe some pizzazz? Moving on from my long tangent on show pages, sorry if it felt like it took a while, but I just feel like with all the money AMC Networks has, you'd think they would use it to spruce up their service and make it look nice, but oh well. Now, I did say the mobile and tablet apps were pretty decent. Well, actually, I said the mobile app was actually the best one, and the tablet version was probably a close second. And I think that's largely because the Google TV app feels a bit, like, stiff in terms of how it performs. While I wouldn't say anything really needs to be buttery smooth, the fact that there is barely any animations for this version of the app kind of bug me. It gives off this weird stigma of cheapness, not to mention the already mediocre-looking show pages. And what makes it unfortunate is that, at least to me, it almost gives off the feeling that this was released unfinished, or they saw it and thought, yeah, that's fine. I don't really want to believe that's the case, though. Adding to the feeling of unfinishedness and cheapness that the HIDIVE Google TV app delivers is trying to access your watch list. I mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again. In order to see your watch list, you have to move to the side menu on the left, go into settings, yeah, it's not on the side menu for some reason, and then you can select your watch list. Now, why does this matter to me? Because whenever I use Crunchyroll, the first place I book it to is my watch list and select a show from there. It took something as simple as a watch list and clunkily hid it behind the settings menu on Google TV. Why? You have all this empty space right here, why couldn't you just put it there? To make matters worse, because it's the Google TV version, its app still suffers from the whole jumping back or forward 30 seconds deal, which is something I criticized earlier in this video and will still criticize. But curiously, the Apple TV version allows me to jump back and forth by 10 seconds. So they know that 10 seconds is better, but just refuse to stick to 10 seconds? Okay, whatever. That's my problem with the Google TV version of HIDIVE. The app feels unfinished and it actually bogs down the experience. Now for anime watching, it's fine, I don't really have a problem with it. And the app is snappy and quick. But I don't know if that's praise directed towards the Google TV streamer or the HIDIVE app. But it bothers me that a really cool concept for HIDIVE streaming on a TV feels this way. Like, I like the idea of entering a code in-app to sign into my HIDIVE app. But even when I'm absolutely annoyed of the idea by writing this part of the script, you know there's a problem. And so I think we can conclude this video. So the big question, has HIDIVE improved? Well, throughout my use of these applications, I've been a bit mixed on how I answer this question. But after looking at how they've been faring on Android and the mobile application as a whole, I'm very tempted to say yes. Despite the tablet version being a pretty decent experience and the Google TV being an incomplete mess, I do genuinely think HIDIVE's UI is better prior to its launch, and it has improved. That being said, there literally wouldn't be anything to go but up after this. Damn, dude, you used to live like this?